and welcome to our squat tutorial. We are here today with the lovely Sarah. Hi. I thought Sarah would be a really good example to show you like how I coach the squat, because when Sarah first came to me and she said she wanted to give powerlifting a go, the squat was something that she really needed to work on, and there were some things that she did that were kind of like red flags, and we really had to like strip it right back and start again. So we're going to show you like how I would coach the squat and the steps I would take in doing that. And then we'll go into more in-depth stuff as we get on. So the first thing that I always get someone to do is perform a bodyweight squat. Obviously, we're going to have feet slightly wider than hips width apart, toes turn out at the kind of like the 1 and 11 o'clock positions. And then she's going to just open her hips up and slowly squat down, sitting back into it. What we're looking for here, when we ask her to do a bodyweight squat in flat-soled shoes, you can see there's a slight rounding of the lower back here. So that means that there is probably some lack of flexibility somewhere along the chain, most likely in the ankles. This, when loaded, is going to be dangerous. It's going to put a lot of torque through the spine. When addressing this issue, one of the things that you can do is create dorsiflexion in the ankle through lifters or a wedge or a plate. But another technique you can use is front loading the squat. So if Sarah takes this dumbbell and front loads it, so we're going to perform a goblet squat. And then if she just squats normally, we can see that there's a much less of a butt wink and she's able to hit depth. Still slight rounding of the back, but stand up. Just 4 more of those. Take your time on the way down. Good. One thing we're trying to do is never lose tension, especially in that bottom position, and always conscious about where our hips are. So when Sarah first came to me, we decided that getting a pair of lifters was definitely going to be to an advantage to her with her squat, to help her hit depth safely before we loaded her spine with a barbell. One of the things that these shoes are used for, as well as putting the ankle in dorsiflexion, they help to make movements more quad dominant. So even if you can squat to depth normally, sometimes people who have a quad bias, who really want to utilize the knee over the toe, they can get an advantage from wearing lifters. So if you want to make things more quad dominant, put the ankle on a little ledge, like a little bit of dorsiflexion, the heel on a little ledge, and you can make things work for you better. But Sarah herself, she has slightly longer femurs than the average person, meaning that, you know, when you look at her physique, she's got lovely long legs, but for a squat, that can be quite difficult. So we wanted to be able to give her this dorsiflexion in the ankle to allow her knees to travel further over her toes, to get her into the best and strongest position that would be for her biomechanics. So when it comes to squatting with a barbell, the first thing we have to think about is the placement of the hands on the bar, and we have to choose whether we're going to squat high bar or we're going to squat low bar. So if Sarah steps up to the bar, Sarah prefers a low bar, so we'll start with that one first. Hands slightly wider than shoulders, and for this one, I'm going to get you to put your thumbs over. And then we want the bar to rest, if you come round here, we want the bar to rest on top of her rear delts. Sarah has a nice lean back, so if you would just stand like this in this position for me, we can see this ledge appear here on top of the rear delts. That's where we want the bar to sit. Take your time. Good. So this is a low bar position. As you can see, the bar is sitting on top of the rear delt muscles. So now we'll show you a high bar position. So if Sarah comes back out, Sarah's been deadlifting quite well at the moment, so she's built some good traps. If you squeeze your upper back like this, okay, we want the bar to be sitting on the lower part of the trapezius muscles here. So if you put your head under the bar again with that same grip, slightly higher for me, bit more, there we go. Right there, that's the high bar position. This technique, I would say, is probably better for hypertrophy for the quads, because it will allow you to take the knee through the full range of motion. Obviously Olympic lifters, but we're power lifters. So we're trying to move as much weight as humanly possible. So we need all of the tools available to us, including more flexion at the hips. So we would use a low bar position. So you go back into that low bar position for me. Lovely. And then we need to think about the unrack. So what she's going to do before she stands up is she's going to create tension in her upper back by squeezing, first of all, elbows slightly back and then together. That tightens up all of the upper back muscles. Stand up for me. When we're coaching the squat, we want to start from the ground up. So the first thing that I'm gonna get her to do is think about her feet. Are her feet evenly spread, turned out the same, kind of the same angle? And then she's going to grip the floor with her foot with emphasis on pushing her big toe into the floor. And she's going to maintain that pressure throughout the lift, in the descent and the ascent as well. So after we've gripped the floor and we're working our way up, the thing that we need to then do is externally rotate the femurs whilst keeping that grip. This is best described as imagining your foot as a screw and your leg as the screwdriver. We want you from the feet and the hips to externally rotate outwards. This is going to create a lot of tension here. And as she descends, which we'll get to in a minute, she's gonna create that lateral pressure moving outwards, really utilizing the glutes in the movement. And this is one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with when it comes to hitting depth, is they don't open their hips, open their groin, open their taint, however you wanna say it. So if you watch Sarah here, what she's going to do is create that lateral pressure as she opens her groin as she goes down. Look at that space she creates for her torso to slide in the middle. So as she goes down slowly, opens out her groin. That's a much better position. You can see her knees are pointing in line with her toes. She's got tension in the hips. Amazing. I think some of the common mistakes that I would see with the squat is definitely a loss of tightness in the lats, especially as we're coming up, but also a loss of tightness everywhere. You need to have this kind of tightness all over your body, especially in the hole. That's where I see a lot of people going wrong. Obviously, when a lot of our lifters, depending on the federation, we do raw and classic raw. But if you are utilizing wraps, you really want to load those wraps, creating tension, pushing into them, and losing some of that tension in the bottom position can be really counterproductive, especially because if you lose the tension in the lats, imagine there's a bar on my back. If you lose the tension, the bar moves, right? And that bar has an optimal bar path, and the heavier, you lift, the more finite that bar path becomes. There's a margin of error when it's light, right? You can muscle things up, but the heavier it gets, the finer the margin for error becomes. So don't lose any tension at any point during the squat. So after we've tightened up and we've had our brace into here, she's gonna keep her eyes directly forward, maybe slightly looking up, and she's going to slowly descend, not losing any tension at any point, especially in the bottom position, opening out her groin and driving up. As she drives up, we want to be thinking about force through the floor, that mid-foot balance, as well as driving with the hips and pushing the upper back into the bar. Just a couple more, brace again for me, good, drive up. Good. Make sure to reset at the top here. What we saw here was a loss of lat tightness, so keep tighten up again. Making sure not to have the elbows come under here. We still want to keep this here, and it's more of pulling the shoulders down into our sides. Beautiful. What that does is that's going to encourage torso rigidity alongside the brace. I think it's worthwhile saying that sometimes if your wrists look like this, there are easy fixes. So from this position, if you allow your wrist to relax and come over the top of the barbell with your hand, like that, and now stand up. Much more efficient position to be able to get maximum tightness in the back here. If you do have bad shoulder mobility, come down. You can always go wider. So go with your hands, wider, 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 good. And then you can try and put your thumb round. How's that wrist position? Okay, that's close enough. So here, you would stand up. If you do have bad shoulder mobility, and this is obviously one of the, hang on, let's move it up a little bit for you. If this is as wide as you need to go, you really need to emphasize, I mean, you should anyway, but you really need to emphasize that tightness in the upper back because there's less of a ledge. Your rear delts need to contract nice and hard to be able to keep that ledge there so the bar doesn't fall off your back. So for maximal performance, we obviously would like to use a belt to do the Valsalva maneuver to brace against. This is going to create internal abdominal pressure, which is going to help us it's going to stabilize our spine, allow us to keep tension in the core, and also as a result, to lift heavier. So how we do this, if Sarah faces us, we're not going to breathe into the chest, we're going to breathe out into the belt, push the air first forward, and then out into the outside of our obliques. Imagine yourself as going underwater, with the water being here. You don't want to breathe out or breathe in underwater. You only want to breathe in when your head is above the water. So you would breathe now, create that internal, intra-abdominal pressure, and making sure that it's full 360. This is going to help your spine stay safe and strong at the same time. So a couple of things to remember is that we are looking for optimal bar path at all times. Things that are going to help, like I said, big toe pressure, keeping the weight mid-foot, and really feeling the weight on your back first. As you walk out, don't rush. Make sure you're set, the bar's stable, and through tightness and bracing, that the bar almost becomes a part of you. Take your time in the descent as it gets heavy. Yes, there are some people who like to nosedive or slut drop or whatever you want to call it into the hole, but generally that results in a loss of tension, and most people will be better taking their time, feeling the descent in order to drive straight back up. So thank you very much for coming today, and thank you to Sarah, who is one of our very talented masters lifter. 53. 43. 33, yeah. That's just their bench. But if you want something in person, online, or just want to have a conversation with us about something, the techniques we use, the more in-depth techniques we use, and a more individualized, oh my God, I can't get my words out today, a more individualized approach to teaching you how to squat properly, click the online coaching application in our bio. Got it right yet again, amazing. Follow us on Instagram, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Otherwise, Sarah is going to be really sad.
Be very sad.
Thanks for watching.